Reed stepped off the transport shuttle and looked around the alien space station. It was bright, colorful, and full of life. Aliens of all sizes walked, floated, or crawled through the busy halls. Some looked like jellyfish, some like walking plants, and others like armored bugs. Red, a young human soldier, wore a plain jacket and carried a small bag on his back. Inside the bag, something moved. A small round head popped out, covered in soft silver fur with glowing blue eyes. The creature blinked at the world with quiet curiosity. Its name was Mika, and to most people, it looked like a cute, helpless animal. But Mika was not ordinary, not even close. As Reed walked through the station, a group of alien cadets laughed. They were tall, sharp-toothed, and wore shiny armor. "Hey, human," one of them shouted. "Is that your dinner or your toy?" The others laughed loudly, pointing at Mika's tiny body. Reed ignored them and kept walking, but Mika stared, its eyes glowing slightly brighter. The teasing didn't stop there. Everywhere they went, someone made fun of Mika. Some called it weak, others called it ugly or useless. One brave alien even tried to poke it with a long metal stick. Reed caught the stick mid-air and glared at the alien. "Don't touch it," he said calmly. "You don't know what it is." The alien laughed again. "It's a pet. Human. What else could it be?" Reed didn't answer. He just walked away. Later that day in the cafeteria, more whispers followed them. Why does a soldier carry a baby rat? Maybe he's scared to be alone. Reed sat down in a corner, placing Mika on the table. The creature stayed quiet, staring at everyone in the room without blinking. A young alien child approached with curiosity. "Can I pet it?" she asked. Reed smiled. "Only if Mika lets you." The child reached out gently, and Mika tilted its head. Then, it softly touched her finger with its tiny paw. The child smiled wide, but the moment was broken when the bully gang returned. The leader alien, named Zarnak, walked up to the table, still showing off your little bug. He mocked, "Why don't you put it in a cage before it gets stepped on?" Reed stood up, his eyes sharp. "Leave us alone." Zarnak leaned closer. "Or what?" Mika suddenly let out a quiet humming sound, a soft vibration that made the table shake slightly. Zarnak stepped back in surprise. What was that?" "It's warning you," Reed replied, calm but cold. Zarnak scoffed and left, but his eyes showed fear now. That night, as the lights dimmed and the station moved into rest mode, one of the alien bullies went missing. His friends searched all over the crew quarters and common areas. All they found was his broken communicator near the reactor wing. Security checked the cameras, but during that time slot, the footage was black. The next morning, rumors spread like fire. Someone's hunting the bullies. Is it the human's pet? No way. It's too small. Then why does the camera always glitch when it's near? Reed said nothing. He sat in silence, eating slowly while Mika rested beside his tray. But Mika was not asleep. His eyes were half open, glowing again, watching everyone. The station's security chief called Reed in. "We have questions about last night," she said. "I was asleep," Reed answered, with Mika beside me. She looked at the glitchy footage again, her fingers tapping nervously. "This thing you carry, is it dangerous?" Reed looked her in the eye. "Only if you treat it like garbage." She didn't ask more, but her face showed concern. In the following days, the mood changed. No one teased Mika anymore. Even the strongest aliens kept their distance. Reed didn't smile, but inside he felt something shift: respect, maybe even fear. One day, a message appeared on the public board: "Underground arena match. Open to all species." Underneath, someone had written, "Let's see if the human's pet can fight." Reed sighed, but before he could delete it, Mika jumped down from the table and tapped the board with its paw. Reed looked down. "You really want to do this?" Mika didn't speak it, never did, but its eyes burned with light. And so, the strange pet was no longer just a silent creature, was about to step into a fight, and the galaxy would never laugh at it again. Asterisk, the underground arena was buried. Deep within the lower decks of the station, it was dusty, hot, and full of shouting voices. Aliens from every species stood in circles, placing bets and watching the center pit. This was not a place for honor. Was a place for blood and power. Reed stood near the edge, his arms crossed beside him. Mika walked silently into the center. Of the arena, the crowd laughed again, louder this time. Is that the fighter? Someone shouted, a mouse in a death match. Another roared. Across from Mika, a giant alien beast stepped forward. It was called a Gorthax, feet tall, thick arms, and 2 heavy clubs. It growled and banged its weapons together. Ready to crush the tiny challenger, Reed didn't move. He watched Mika closely, his eyes sharp but calm. He whispered under his breath, "Remember who you are." The bell rang. The Gorthok charged, its roar shaking the arena walls. But Mika didn't run. Instead, it vanished, not vanished. Like it had melted into the air. The crowd gasped. The Gorthok stopped, confused, sniffing the air. It turned around and screamed. Something had cut deep into its leg, fast and clean. Mika reappeared behind it, its small body glowing with strange light. Then it vanished again. Another scream, another strike. This time on the beast's back, the Gorthok swung wildly but hit nothing. Within seconds, it dropped to its knees, too wounded to fight. The arena fell silent. No one laughed now. No one even moved. Kay stood in the center, calm and quiet. Its fur shimmered with light, and its eyes glowed brighter than ever. Then it turned and walked back to Reed, who picked it up gently. He whispered, "Good job." The fight was over, but the whispers had just begun. Did you see that? That thing teleported? No. It didn't. It bent the air, like time itself. What is it? The footage from the arena was reviewed by security. But something strange happened. All cameras blacked out during Mika's attacks. Only blurry shadows and flashes of light remained. Later that night, a group of scientists met in secret. They replayed old war files marked top secret. They matched Mika's moves with a long-forgotten weapon prototype. Their eyes widened in fear. It can't be. One whispered, that project was destroyed. Meanwhile, Reed walked quietly through the dark halls of the station. Mika rested on his shoulder, silent as ever. But both of them knew they had revealed too much. The next day, things felt different. Everyone moved aside when Reed entered a room. Aliens who once teased him now stared with wide eyes. Even high-ranking officers looked at Mika with nervous respect. But something else was happening too. Lights began flickering in strange patterns when Mika passed by. Machines beeped oddly, like they recognized it. One cargo bot even shut down completely when Mika looked at it. Reed kept quiet, but the whispers grew louder. Maybe it's not a pet. What if it's a weapon? A living weapon. The bullies didn't return to the arena. One of them had left the station entirely. Another locked himself in his room, refusing to speak to anyone. The last one had gone missing, vanished, just like the first. Security sent teams to investigate, but all they found was a broken wall panel and burn marks. The cameras showed nothing, just static. Again, the station's commander requested a private meeting. With Reed, she sat across from him, hands folded. This creature, Mika, what exactly is it? She asked. Reed took a deep breath. It's complicated. She leaned in. Then, make it simple. Reed looked at Mika, who sat on the table calmly. It's loyal, it protects, and it remembers, he said. That's all you need to know. The commander narrowed her eyes. Is it dangerous? Reed replied, only if you are. Later that evening, Reed sat alone in his quarters. He stared at an old photo of a war-torn planet. In the background was a glowing crater, and in the center of that crater was a small figure, Mika, standing. Alone, surrounded by fallen machines, he remembered that day clearly. He had been dying, bleeding out. When Mika appeared, the creature had destroyed an army of drones in seconds. Then it sat beside him, placed a paw on his chest, and healed him since then. They had been together. Reed didn't know what Mika truly was, but he knew one thing: Mika chose him, not the other way around. Now, the galaxy was starting to notice. And not everyone liked what they saw in the dark corners of the station. Plans were being made. Scientists, generals, and spies all wanted the same thing: to control the creature, to own it, to use it. But Mika was watching. It knew, and it was ready. The station was quiet, but the silence felt heavy. Everyone had seen the arena fight, but no one understood it. How could something so small, so silent, defeat a beast 5 times its size? Mika had become a mystery, a question that no one dared to answer. Reed sat alone in the training hall, watching Mika move slowly across the floor. The creature walked in circles, leaving no footprints. Its body glowed faintly, reacting to lights and shadows like it could feel both. Reed whispered, "You're changing again, aren't you?" Mika didn't reply, but it paused, and for a second, its eyes looked almost human. Across the station, angry voices echoed in the upper deck gym. Zarnok, the alien bully, slammed his fists against a metal wall. "We lost to a toy," he growled. "We're soldiers, elite warriors, and we were humiliated." Another cadet said, "What do you want to do? Fight it again?" Zarnok turned, eyes burning. "No," he said. "I want the whole galaxy to see it fail." The plan began with a message, a public challenge, signed by Zarnok and his squad. It was posted on every screen, hallway, and mess hall wall. Official. Combat trial. Humans Pet vs. Squad Alpha 3 rounds. 1 hour. Read the message quietly. A few officers told him to ignore it, but Mika stood and walked to the nearest screen. It touched the message with one paw, then turned to Reed. Reed sighed. "So you're accepting it?" Mika blinked once. Slowly, the arena was prepared once again. But this time, it was larger, darker, and full of traps. The floor shifted, walls moved, and hidden turrets popped from ceilings. This wasn't just a match, it was a war simulation. The audience returned, bigger than before. Ambassadors, soldiers, scientists, and spies all wanted to see what Mika really was. Reed stood outside the arena, watching the countdown screen. He whispered to no one, "Don't push too far, inside." The first round began. Mika stepped into the arena alone. Zarnok and his squad entered from the other side. Weapons charged. No rules, no mercy, just power. They fired first, aiming to pin Mika down, but the creature vanished faster than before. It moved like smoke soft, untouchable, then sharp as lightning. One of the squad's weapons exploded in his hands. Forcing him to retreat, Mika didn't attack. Not at first. It simply danced between them, watching, calculating. Zarnok screamed, "It's playing with us." He charged forward, swinging a glowing staff. The moment the staff touched Mika, a pulse shot back and threw him across the room. Round 1 ended without a single strike from Mika, but 2 of the squad members couldn't stand anymore. Reed watched from the screen, frowning. Mika was holding back, that was clear. Round 2 began immediately. This time, they used drones and sonic blasts. The arena changed shape. Closing walls and flashing blinding lights, Mika disappeared again. But this time, not even the sensors could find it. "Where is it?" Zarnok shouted. Then the lights flickered and shut down completely. Screams followed, weapons fired wildly into darkness. When the lights returned, The drones were piled in one corner, crushed. But untouched by flame or bullet, Mika stood calmly. In the middle of the room, not even breathing hard, its fur was clean, its eyes still glowing. Round 2 was over. The final round was supposed to be the hardest. The arena flooded with gas, heat, electric traps, and gravity fields. Zarnak activated. His suit's overdrive mode becoming twice as fast and 3 times as strong. He roared, "Come on, show me what you really are." Mika stepped forward and this time transformed. Its body stretched slightly. Its limbs became sharper and a symbol lit up on its chest. A symbol that made 2 of the watching scientists drop their tablets. "That's from Project Eco Zero." One whispered, "That's not just a weapon, it's a prototype guardian." Zarnak swung with everything he had. Mika caught the attack with one paw, twisted, and gently placed the alien on the ground. No bones broken, no blood spilled, just a quiet end. When the round ended, no one cheered, no one clapped. They just watched in silence as Mika walked back to Reed and climbed into his arms. Reed turned to the audience and said nothing. He didn't need to. They had all seen the truth. Mika wasn't just a pet. It was something far more powerful, and it had chosen peace, even when it could have destroyed. Back in his room, Reed looked at Mika and whispered, "They're going to come for you now." Mika looked back and tilted its head. It wasn't afraid, not even a little. The next morning, the space station was tense. News of Mika's performance in the challenge had reached far. Even the outer colonies were talking about the human's pet. But those who saw it with their own eyes knew which no pet. In the command chamber, a secret meeting began. The station commander, 3 military officers, and 2 scientists sat around a dark table. The screen lit up, showing blurry clips of Mika blinking through walls and dodging lasers. One officer whispered, "This isn't technology we understand." The scientist leaned forward. "It's not technology," he said. "It's alive." Meanwhile, Reed sat in a quiet observation room. He held a small case in his lap. Locked and marked with red warnings, he had never wanted to open it. But now, he had no choice. He placed it on the table, pressed his thumb to the scanner, and waited. A soft click unlocked it, revealing an old data card. He inserted it into the room's console. A hologram appeared, an image of a destroyed battlefield. Explosions. Broken machines, fire in every direction. In the middle of it all stood Mika, glowing like a star. The report's voice echoed. Subject, Project E0. Status, uncontrollable outcome. Unknown. The door opened behind him. The commander stepped in. Her face serious. "Tell me everything," she said. Reed nodded. "Mika isn't a pet. She's a guardian prototype, built during the last Great War. She was designed to protect soldiers, civilians, anything she bonds with." The commander frowned. "Built by who?" Reed answered, "We don't know who made her, only that they vanished. She was found on a dead world, surrounded by broken weapons and burned cities. She was the only thing still alive." The commander paced. "So what are we dealing with?" Reed looked at Mika, who sat quietly by the window. "She's learning," he said. "She's growing outside the room." Soldiers watched Mika from security cameras, but their monitors flickered every few seconds. Heat sensors went cold, and motion trackers went blind. One technician whispered, "She's jamming us without even trying." Across the galaxy, in a hidden lab, someone else was watching. A tall figure stood in front of dozens of screens. His eyes narrowed as he saw Mika's latest battle. He turned to his assistant. "Send the retrieval unit," he said. "We need it alive." Back on the station, things began to change. Doors opened for Mika before she reached them. Cleaning bots paused and moved aside when she passed. The station systems were reacting to her presence almost like they knew her, or feared her, that night. Reed sat in his room, watching her sleep. He spoke softly. "I know you're not really asleep." Mika's eyes opened slightly. glowing dim blue. "Why did you choose me?" he asked. Mika tilted her head, her tiny paw reaching out to touch his hand. She didn't speak, but in that moment, Reed felt something inside his mind. A warm memory, not his, but hers. She had once protected a small child on a battlefield. She failed to save the parents, but the child had smiled at her. She had never forgotten that smile. Reed wiped his eyes and whispered, "You remember everything, don't you?" Mika blinked once. The next morning, the station alarms went off. An unauthorized ship had arrived, no ID, no signal, just a silent black ship parked outside the docking ring. No one knew how it got through the defense grid. The commander rushed to the control deck. "Who are they?" she demanded. "No answers," the officer said. "But they're demanding the return of a project asset." Reed's heart dropped. "They've come for Mika," he whispered. Before anyone could act, the black ship released spider-like drones. They moved fast, crawling through the station vents and floors. One broke into the research lab, disabling guards with a soft hiss of gas. Reed grabbed his bag, opened it, and called out, "Mika, we have to go." Mika jumped out, her eyes already glowing. She ran ahead, faster than light. Every drone that crossed her path was disabled in seconds. No damage, no destruction, just shut down like flipping a switch. In the control room, the commander watched in awe. "She's rewriting them," she whispered. "She's controlling machines just by touching the network." The invaders didn't expect resistance. They especially didn't expect their own drones to turn against them. Mika had entered their code, reversed their commands. Now, the spider drones were crawling back toward their ship, not to return but to tear it apart. Inside the docking bay, the lead invader panicked. "Shut it down. Shut everything down." But it was too late. Mika appeared in the bay, floating gently as if gravity meant nothing. The invader raised his weapon. Mika did not attack. She simply looked into his eyes. He dropped his gun and fell to his knees, shaking. "She's awake," he whispered. "She remembers." And with that, the black ship exploded from within. No deaths, no fire, just silence. As if it had never been there at all. Back in Reed's room, Mika sat on the window again. The stars reflected in her eyes. Reed whispered, "They're scared of you." Mika turned, calm and peaceful. She was not just powerful. She was not just powerful. She was in control, and the galaxy had just witnessed her secret power. The station had gone quiet again, but this silence was not peaceful, it was fear. After Mika stopped the black ship, no one questioned her power anymore. She had not destroyed anyone, but she had shown what she could do. Now, everyone walked carefully around her. Officers lowered their voices when they spoke of her. Children stared with wide eyes, unsure whether to smile or run, and Reed. He stayed alert, knowing it was only a matter of time before someone made a mistake. In a hidden chamber, Zarnak and his old squad watched the footage again. Their pride still burned. "We were humiliated," one muttered, "by a creature the size of a backpack." Zarnak clenched his fist. "She embarrassed us in front of the whole galaxy. We need to take her down." Another said, "No," Zarnak replied. "We need to take her." They had a plan, a cruel one. Late that night, while Reed was called to the commander's office for questioning, Zarnak's team struck. They broke into Reed's quarters, shut off the internal cameras, and stunned the guards. Mika was alone. Sitting by the window, calm as always, Zarnak walked in slowly, holding a containment orb. "Easy now," he whispered. "You're coming with us." Mika didn't move, didn't resist. She simply looked at him, quiet and still, for a second. Zarnak hesitated, but pride pushed him forward. He activated the orb, K, and it swallowed Mika in a flash of light. Reed returned minutes later and saw the broken door. His heart dropped. "Mika," he whispered. Running inside, the room was empty. No light, no warmth, It's just a cold message scratched into the wall. She's ours now. Meanwhile, in the lower storage deck, Zarnek's squad prepared to leave the station. They had locked Mika in a high security crate, surrounded by force fields and dampeners. She hasn't moved, one said. Watching the scanner, good Zarnek grinned. We'll sell her to the highest bidder, maybe the warlords in the outer ring. But the scanner was wrong. Inside the crate, Mika's eyes were open, glowing deep red now. She wasn't scared. She was waiting. Reed rushed to the command center. They took her, he said, breathing hard. The commander ordered a lockdown. Nobody leaves this station. Reed stared at the map. They're heading for Dock 12. Zarnek's ship was just powering up when the first alarm blared. Security breach. The pilot looked around, confused. Where? Inside the ship, came the reply. Then, one by one, the lights inside the ship went dark, the engines died, the airlock hissed open, and the force field flickered out. Mika floated gently out of the crate, unharmed. She didn't run. She didn't hide. She simply walked, and systems began to collapse. Zarnek reached for his blaster. Mika, stop. He shouted. Mika paused, looked at him, and in that moment, Zarnek saw something terrifying. Not anger, not hate, but disappointment. She raised one paw, and the weapon powered down. Then another wave of energy swept through the room, shutting down the ship's systems completely, one by one. Zarnek's squad dropped to their knees, not hurt, just paralyzed, unable to move. Reed arrived seconds later. Running through the crowd, he found Mika standing in the middle of the dock. Surrounded by silence, she turned to him and walked over. Calmly climbing into his arms, Reed whispered, "I'm sorry." She closed her eyes and leaned into his chest. Back in the command center, the commander reviewed the logs. No signs of violence, she said. No harm, no damage, just shut down, the science officer added. She's not using weapons. She's using influence. She's using influence. She speaks directly to machines. News of the incident spread fast. Other stations began calling. Some wanted to invite Mika for research. Others wanted her locked away. Some even offered money, weapons, and ships in exchange. Reed stood in front of the station council. She is not property, he said, his voice firm. She chooses who to protect, who to trust, and she trusted us until we let her be taken. The council argued for hours. Some feared she was too powerful to be free. Others believed she was their greatest asset. But one thing was certain: Mika had changed the game. That night, Mika sat on the station roof, staring at the stars. Reed joined her, carrying a warm blanket and a small box of food. He sat beside her and opened the box. Offering a piece of fruit, she took it gently. "I don't know where you came from," Reed said, "but I'm glad you stayed." Mika looked up at the stars again. Somewhere out there, others were watching. Others who remembered her true name. Others who wanted her back. But Mika had made her choice. She wasn't just a weapon. She wasn't just a pet. She was something new, something no one could control. And now, the galaxy would have to decide whether to fear her, follow her, or leave her alone. Asterisk, the word pet was no longer heard on the station. Not whispered, not joked, not written. Mika had erased that title. Not with violence, but with silent strength. Now, when people saw her, they stood aside. Some out of respect, others out of fear. But fear has a voice. And in distant corners of the galaxy, that voice began to speak louder. Some called her a threat. Others called her a weapon that should be locked away forever. And a few, in the deepest shadows, planned to capture her for themselves inside the station. High-level diplomats arrived. Ships from 3 planetary unions docked silently. Reed watched them from the upper level, knowing they hadn't come to offer friendship. They came to discuss without her. A large meeting was held in the central dome. Leaders, generals, and scientists argued over her future. "She cannot remain on a civilian station," one barked. "She should be studied." Another said, "She may hold the key to controlling ancient tech." One voice stood up and declared, "We are lucky she hasn't turned against us." Reed listened, his jaw tight. "She's not your enemy," he said. "But if you keep treating her like one, she might become one." Mika was not in the meeting. She sat in the garden deck, where the light from nearby stars shone softly, bird-like. Drones fluttered overhead, and she watched them with quiet interest. One small drone landed beside her, its systems blinking oddly. Mika touched it gently, and it rebooted cleaner, brighter, more alive. She wasn't just repairing machines. She was evolving them. Meanwhile, the diplomats gave their final verdict. "We're sending a transport," they said. "She will be taken to Central Authority labs for containment and study." Reed stood up, his voice cold. "No, she's not going anywhere. You don't get to decide." One of them snapped. Reed replied, "She does," but they had already sent the order. A high-security ship was en route, and it would arrive in less than an hour. Its job was simple: take Mika by force if needed. Reed ran through the station. Trying to find her, he found her near the reactor level, watching the energy core swirl with light. "We have to go," he said. Breathless, Mika turned to him. "Calm as always. They're coming for you," he added. "They won't ask you. They'll try to take you." Mika stepped forward and looked into his eyes. Then she placed her paw over his chest. In that moment, he felt a wave of emotion, sadness, peace, and something else, something ancient. She wasn't surprised. She had known this would happen. Reed activated the emergency escape protocol. They made their way through the old cargo tunnels, far from the main systems, as they moved. The walls around them flickered. Mika was guiding them. Doors opened silently. Cameras turned away. Alarms stayed silent. But they were not the only ones moving. The retrieval team had landed. Armored soldiers with EMP rifles and containment gear. They moved like shadows, fast and without warning. Within minutes, they reached the center of the station. But Mika and Reed were already gone, deep inside the maintenance zone. Reed tried to contact the docking crew. No response. He turned to Mika. "They've locked us out." Mika touched the wall, and lights blinked rapidly. A hidden door opened, revealing an old escape pod. Before they could board it, the retrieval team arrived. Weapons raised, helmets glowing. "This is your final warning," the leader said. "Step away from the creature." Reed stepped in front of her, arms wide. "She's not a creature," he said. "She's a person, and she decides what happens next." Mika stepped beside him. Her fur began to shift color, glowing silver. A strange pulse filled the air, low and deep, like a heartbeat echoing through metal. Suddenly, the soldiers' weapons shut down. One by one, their suits locked. Their helmets filled with static. Panic spread through the team. "We've lost control," someone shouted. "Systems are hijacked." Mika raised one paw, and the walls behind her lit up with symbols. Known, ancient, beautiful, they floated in the air like language made of stars. Then everything stopped. The soldiers dropped to the ground, not hurt, just frozen in place. Their systems locked in a soft sleep. Mika turned to Reed. He understood without words. She didn't attack, he whispered. She reset them. They stepped into the pod, and Mika touched the console. The old engines flared to life as if powered by something new. Within seconds, they launched from the station, disappearing into the stars. Back in the command room, the diplomats stood in silence. One of them whispered, "She let them live." Another replied, "She's not a weapon. She's something greater." And from that moment forward, no one dared call her a pet again. Mika had made her choice. She wasn't a machine. She wasn't a tool. She was free. The stars stretched across the black sky like silent witnesses. Reed's escape pod moved through the quiet, guided not by fuel, but by Mika. She sat calmly in front of the old control panel, her glowing paw resting on the ship's cracked systems. The broken lights turned steady. The failing engines hummed like new. She wasn't just navigating space. She was speaking to it. For 3 days, they floated beyond patrol range. No signals, no trackers, no stations, just endless void. Reed tried not to worry, but he knew the silence would not last. Someone would find them, someone always did. On the 4th day, Mika stirred. Her ears twitched. Her eyes glowed with pale green light. Reed leaned forward. Is someone coming? She nodded once, slowly. Far behind them, a fleet emerged from hyperspace. Not a patrol. Not a scout team. This was something else. 3 black cruisers, silent and without logos. Unknown, unclaimed, but heavily armed, inside the lead ship. Masked commanders gave orders. Target is marked. One said, engage only if necessary. Another added, our mission is to extract, no matter the cost. Reed's pod shook as the signal reached them. Unregistered vessel, power down. And prepared to be boarded. Reed looked at Mika. What do we do? She didn't answer with words, but her body began to change. Her soft silver fur shifted to a deep blue. The symbols on her chest glowed again. It's time forming a complete ring. Reed had seen this once before on the battlefield where she was found. Warning shot incoming, the ship announced. A pulse beam hit the space just beside them, making the pod tremble. Reed gritted his teeth. We can't outrun them. Mika stood in the center of the pod. She placed her paw on the floor, and for a moment, the entire vessel turned quiet. Then something unexpected happened. The walls of the pod became transparent, outside. A field of light formed around them, a dome made of energy and thought. The cruisers fired again, but the blasts never touched them. Instead, the energy dome bent the shots, absorbing them like water hitting glass. Inside the lead cruiser, alarms went off. She's activating the sphere protocol, one officer shouted. But that hasn't been seen in over 100 years. Another whispered. Mika floated gently in the air, her body pulsing with quiet power. Then she opened her eyes and space itself rippled. The enemy ships froze mid-movement, locked in. Place every control panel, every engine, every weapon silent. The masked commanders stared at their black screens, helpless. One of them screamed, "Shut her down." But nothing worked. In that moment, Mika reached out not to destroy, but to speak. A wave of light traveled from her body to the enemy ships, inside their command bridges. A voice echoed not in words, but in understanding. It showed them the battlefield she had survived, the destruction she had witnessed. It showed them the choice she made, not to kill, but to protect. Reed watched from the pod. Stunned, he felt her message too. She wasn't a weapon. She was a memory. A guardian born from war, shaped by loss, guided by purpose. The enemy crews fell silent, their weapons turned off. Not by force, but by choice. One by one, the cruisers changed direction. They left without another shot, disappearing into deep space. Reed looked at Mika, who floated back down, tired but calm. You didn't fight them, he said softly. You forgave them. She rested beside him, her eyes dim but peaceful. The pod resumed its course, now heading toward a quiet moon, orbiting a forgotten world, a place with no armies, no labs, just quiet winds and ancient ruins. They landed safely. Reed stepped out first. The air crisp and clean. Mika followed, stretching her limbs like a creature finally at rest. Together, they walked through the ruins. Old symbols lit up as Mika passed symbols from her own chest. This was her birthplace, her final memory. She sat beside a stone covered in moss and placed her paw on it. Light flowed from her into the ground, like she was sharing her story with the planet itself. Reed sat beside her, not speaking, not moving, just watching. After a long silence, Mika looked up at him, A soft light glowed behind her. Forming wings made of energy, she stood, not as a pet, not as a machine, but as something new, a legend from that day forward. Stories spread across space, not of war, not of power, but of a small creature who chose peace over fear, wisdom over control, and beside her, always, was the human who saw her not as a weapon, but as a friend. Mika had no owner, no master, no label. She had only one truth. She was not a pet. She was the last guardian of an ancient age, and now she had begun a new one.